your fat soluble vitamin will be stored in the body, and at a very excessive amount. Yes, because they get stored in the body, what happens is there is a more than the toxicity, there is also a vitamin interaction, and sometimes these vitamins can reduce the absorption of the other vitamin. So I hope that is actually the predominant important highlight of that. So especially with vitamin D, with the pandemic, a lot of people have been overdoing vitamin D, of course, but the range of the vitamin D is also being really pushed up. So then we have yes, Spandana says hi. Okay, certification is best for sports nutrition. See, I will suggest that any program you do, kindly do it for a slightly longer. Honestly, I think the program that we are doing today is quite an awesome one, because the amount that we are trying to cover, believe me, even at my over 18 and a half years of work experience, I still don't know everything. There's so much that we need to keep updating and keep learning, and you can't know everything, being human. So any certification program that you do, kindly do with a good university or a reputed place, not some ad hoc, just some few sessions of, say, few hours that you can do, because it's, I think, very important to have credible resource faculty, and positively you need a good authentic place. So right now we have quite a few of them that have been offered. So from, of course, the IOC is a postgraduate diploma, and obviously it's also quite expensive for an online course, because you're also paying the curriculum fees to the Olympics, which is based out of UK, right? So that can become quite heavy if you don't have those quite a few bit of lakhs, as you can spare. I myself have paid for it in installments, and I used to work, so I used to siphon off my salary as my fees. So I've been very lucky. So now I think we have Sports Authority of India, which is also tied up with Ramachandra University. We've ASFNS, and I think even Mumbai SNDT probably is offering some certification courses. Is it Sindhu, or I can only see first few alphabets? I want to speak about standards like FSSAI for sports, food, and drink. Okay, so I know that I have been actually invited, very fortunately for me, accidentally somebody found me there. And because I also was at that moment, I had just freshly graduated from the IOC Sports Nutrition Postgraduate Diploma. So I've been at the FSSAI Ministry of Health office in Delhi twice. So of course it was a panel discussion, and we were all there to contribute. So thankfully now FSSAI, Food Standard Safety Authority of India, definitely is trying to streamline a lot of things, and they have this sports guideline, sports supplements used for sports persons. And in fact, I have that link. I mean, probably I can share that with you guys. Just give me 1 sec. Let me just see if I can extract that. Okay, just give me 1 sec. So because I was a part of that, meeting, and now they have formulated, the guidelines. Okay, hang on. Now I have a soft copy here. Just let me try and get the link of that. So definitely they extract the guidelines of the guys. You're able to hear me, right? The WADA and the NADA list, which is updated the 1st of January every year. So from of course there is an extensive. So there is an extensive list that is updated year on year, and so that will kind of guide you as to what is safe, what is okay, and okay, I think if I'm not mistaken, this is the one. Just see if you guys can access this. Okay, so this was updated, and oh dear, okay, I almost exited Zoom. All right, so yes, so this will give you a thorough update on what they are trying to do, and positively, like I said, since they're also saying that especially if you're playing elite level and there is testing involved, then you positively want to, steer clear of any contamination, or you want to be careful with the products that you will use, which are dope free. So that's where all these certifications and third party testing comes into predominance, and batch testing. So any good third party verified product is always safe. Okay, now FSSAI. Okay, female hormone fluctuations affect AMSU, athletic performance, and how to compensate. Yes, today we have a lot of data. In fact, I myself am not the expert here, and I don't have, though I have been just reading the tip of the iceberg. We definitely know that through the menstrual cycle and the changing estrogen and the progesterone can impact not just your macronutrient or the metabolic pathways, but definitely yes, from the food craving to how it can impact your energy intake. We know that now in the first, after your menstrual cycle, that is the day you bleed is the day one, and thereon you know that you have more carbohydrate oxidation, meaning that you can look at burning more carbs. But after a point, I know that just when your ovulation takes place and when your progesterone is high, if I'm not mistaken, because I said I must be humble enough with a ounce of truthfulness to say that I am not highly well read on this topic. But yes, when the ovulation occurs and the progesterone hormone increases, there is definitely more capability for protein oxidation. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is what it is. And so just remind me one more time, I will brush this up. And but I think this is the crux of the entire metabolism in the menstrual cycle that is involved.
Hi, can we start today's session as maximum participants have joined and we can, maintain our time frame? Is it okay with you then?
Yes. Yes, so FSSAI says that we must have any product that is even imported must go through the FSSAI licensing, so that there is some control over the standards. So probably we can discuss that at another time. Okay, so but yes, for sports people, the sports supplement guidelines I have already shared in the link. Okay, now today's session, I know there's plenty to do, so let's see how much we'll be able to finish. So guys, in the just maybe we can have some Q&A going, and for now we'll just finish this where we started last, and we can just go into micronutrients thereafter. So we talked of how in the energy metabolism, guys, you are able to hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the carbohydrate, which is the main energy yielders and also very important in order to spare proteins. Proteins are required for mainly muscle maintenance, muscle building. Now, apart then, of course, proteins also have other functions. The last vertical, which is a part of the macronutrient, is your fats, meaning your oils, your ghee, butter. Fat also comes in many other ways. Now, I would just like to just touch upon this wee bit, just very important aspect, which is good for an athlete. Now, there are two types of fat, meaning what can also come from the food, because from your dals to cheese to milk, especially very high in saturated fats. So there is also a lot of hidden fat in the marbling, if you see in the meats. So you will have fats in red meat, especially even in chicken, the skin of the chicken, definitely the egg yolk. Now that is called as the invisible fat, meaning that you don't necessarily have to look. When we say baby, you will need about 1 gram per kg body weight or even more of the fat, and that itself can be anywhere between 50 to 60 grams in the entire day. But it's important to remember the calorie density we talked about. The fats are very, very dense, meaning they have more than double the amount of calorie that come from carbohydrate and protein. So that's the reason that you would like to restrict it to as minimum as possible, considering that it also comes from the food. So you would like to keep it at half the intake, and then you definitely have the visible fat, the oil, ghee, butter, which you will add. That is what actually you will count as 25 to 30 grams, and that itself is quite a lot. 5 to 6 5 to 6 teaspoons, and that can also be very dependent on so many other aspects as to if the athlete is looking at cutting down weight, is looking at reducing fat mass. So again, because it's so calorie dense, you kind of play along and then adjust the quantity of the fats itself. I think the highlight also of this particular macronutrient will be that you focus on mainly monounsaturated fatty acids, and these are heart healthy. And particularly this photo here is of mustard oil. Now, this actually is a very ideal oil in our Indian setting. So any the heart healthy fats in Indian setting are rice bran, which is quite a recent one, which has original the cholesterol lowering component in it. The cold pressed till oil, cold pressed mustard oil is very good. Definitely saturated fats, coconut oil, though cold pressed coconut oil is not a monounsaturated fatty acid, but that also is quite good. Now, most important of the polyunsaturated fatty acids or the good fats is your omega-3, extremely important for an athlete, because the omega-3 is what is very good in anti-inflammatory function. It can lower the free radical of the exercise training, where there is a tendency for the person to have lowered immunity and can fall sick. Now, the good fats or the oily fish, mainly coming from sardines, mackerel, salmon, because these are what is the oily fish, or what you call the fatty fish, which gives you the omega-3, the most potent forms of EPA, DHA, eicosapentaenoic acid, docosahexaenoic acid, and that is what we really need. And salmon, the wild salmon has the lowest mercury contamination, and mackerel and sardines are the trout, the tiniest ones are also the good option, because they have very, very small amounts of, not small, they are very safe to eat, because they don't have biomagnification or buildup of mercury, which can be harmful. So omega-3, now we know from the latest evidence also that it's very, very important even to enhance your muscle mass. So I think especially in vegetarian athletes, if they're not consuming fish, then there definitely is a value addition to look at omega-3 supplementation. Most important, again, to pay or rather pay attention to in an athlete's diet is the consumption of trans fats, because athletes come in all forms and sizes and shapes. So now what happens is, when they're young athletes, there definitely is a tendency to eat a lot of ready to eat foods, processed foods, and we definitely know athletes who do eat out in a lot of or they either order in or eat from restaurants. So very important to notice what is trans fats. Like you guys were asking about FSSAI, which is basically the governing body in India, like US FDA or FDA, which is basically in US. So now the trans fat intake ideally should be less than 2% of your whole calorie intake, meaning actually it should be very, very little. Okay, it could be less than 2 grams actually. And when the packet reads, like if you see the FSSAI, the guidelines are that any food which will read less than 0.5 grams of trans fats in a serving actually can be labeled as trans fats free. So anything that you eat as your samosa, chaat, anything deep fried, vadas from the fast food, or for that matter, any baked goods have the highest amount of trans fats. And from your brownie, cookie, especially if you see these very fancy brands who will say that their butter cookies is trans fats free. It's quite ironical, because when the butter is subjected to such high temperature, that is where this man-made, the fat changes the structure and the trans fats are formed. Okay, though there is a double bond, but unfortunately the structure changes and then it becomes unhealthy. So you must always limit these deep fried and baked items. Now, another crucial aspect for an athlete is also the consumption of the alcohol, because alcohol itself has a lot of empty calories. Just like sugar. Sugar is absolutely needed for an athlete. In the carbohydrate chapter, you learned about how you need the sugar during the workout and probably immediately after the workout. Similarly, if you are an adult and you do consume alcohol, which is quite, the norm and the practice, you have to be particularly aware of how you will be able to consume this and in what quantities, because 1 gram of alcohol gives 7 calories. So it is quite a calorie dense. See, if you saw carbohydrate, protein, it was 4 calorie, whereas oils were 9 calorie and alcohol is 7 calories. So you have to also be aware to kind of where you need to place it, and how you are able to also focus on your recovery, because the primary importance is consumption of carbohydrate for your glycogen resynthesis, protein, in order to prevent the muscle breakdown. Because especially in athletes, when who do competitions, or anytime there is a celebration, alcohol can become a part of it. Especially in the Olympics, we have had a chapter on that. And in the Western culture, yes, it is a part of the diet, and I'm sure it is even in India too. So you have to remember that consumption of alcohol can actually dampen your recovery process. So based on your training periodization, you have to be very careful of how you consume them. Okay, so this was the chapter that we started with, the proteins. Just give me one sec. I'm just trying to exit this. Okay, and we start a new chapter. If there are any questions, do we need to take them now, or we can take them? Any questions related to this? So that we are starting our micronutrients now. Vitamin D3, yes, we're going to cover that in detail. Any oil, including olive oil, is rendered unsafe once heated. Please comment. So Naina, that's an interesting question that you have asked. Different oils have different smoke point, or the heat, the temperature that it can tolerate. So in our Indian setting, if you see, sunflower oil actually is the best oil which can tolerate very high smoke point or high temperature. Similarly is the coconut oil and ghee. But what happens is that sunflower oil is very high in omega-6, and that can lead to inflammation. It is not a very good choice of oil. So it depends on, once in a while, if you're going to be deep frying, you can use ghee, coconut oil, or sunflower oil. Now, anything that you heat and it comes to a smoke point, like I told you in the previous sessions, that sometimes accidentally I also bring the oil to smoke point, which ideally may not be needed. Particularly if you deep fry, yes, it does happen because of the high temperature. Then you kind of discard that oil into the dustbin, not into your plumbing, because it will clog it. So do not reuse the oil that has come to a high point, because trans fats are formed at high temperature. That is the only reason. But any oil can definitely be used for cooking. Like I already told you, extra virgin olive oil is a very different oil, and it contains something called as oleic acid, which means it's very unique and it cannot be found. But you also have to understand, olive oil is origin of Italy and Spain, but oleic acid is something that's not found anywhere else, right? It's mainly olives, and I think it's also avocados. So the monounsaturated fatty acids come mainly from these. So that's why I think olive oil can't be replaced with any of our Indian oil, though I highly recommend our own oils, like I already told you. Okay, somebody has raised a question. Okay, are there more questions coming in? Somebody has raised a hand. Okay, somebody has raised a hand, and I don't know if you like to share your question. No. Okay, guys, I'm starting my next presentation. Okay.
Should I unmute her, Priyanka Singh?
Yes, you can, please, because we're starting our next presentation.
Yes, Priyanka, you can ask your question. Priyanka, are you there?
Okay, let's move on. Maybe is a question in the chat. How healthy is coconut oil? Okay, coconut oil is definitely a very healthy oil, though it is a saturated oil. Like I already told you, the coconut oil has. See, olive oil has oleic acid, lauric acid in coconut oil, antibacterial. See, please understand, coconut oil is not MCT. Also, another thing that you see, coconut oil is actually good for the heart. Any saturated fat, ghee, butter. Okay, actually, ghee is better than butter. Oh, that's becoming a tongue twister. So, ghee and coconut oil. Okay, now the MCT, medium chain triglycerides, are directly absorbed into the liver, which means that they don't get stored in the body. But please understand that coconut oil is not MCT. Coconut oil has very, very tiny amounts of MCTs. So, but however, it is extremely beneficial because it increases good cholesterol. Similarly, ghee, the saturated fats increase good cholesterol called as high density lipoprotein called HDL. But they also, if you overdo it, it can also increase a bad cholesterol called LDL. Okay, low density lipoprotein. Now, that is why it's important that you follow the guidelines. The intake of saturated fat should be less than 7% of your total calorie intake. And if you do the math, it is less than 1 teaspoon of saturated fats in the entire day. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, so great. Now we'll finally move into our next chapter. So we are talking on micronutrients. This is a very interesting. Okay, why am I not able to? So this is a very, very important chapter for athletes, because a lot of micronutrient deficiency. So when we talk about minerals and vitamins, you will understand, and how much of this is actually needed, supplementation, and one or two references to the athletes I have dealt with. Now, like somebody asked me prior to when we were waiting, there are different types of fats, right? So we have the water soluble ones that get thrown out of the body, so they can never be stored, meaning that you have to keep taking them in your diet. Whereas you have the fat soluble vitamin, which means that you need fats. We just talked about in the previous macronutrient. Just to wind down, we were talking about the basic gist of what are fats as a macronutrient. So fats are extremely needed in the body because they are required from skin to overall well-being to your fat soluble absorption of fat soluble vitamins. Okay, so that itself, because athletes, if you're looking at weight loss and you're weight cycling, you cannot just eradicate or remove fats from the diet, because fats have extremely important functions. And we also talked of omega-3, how omega-3 itself is needed even for brain function. Docosahexaenoic acid, I don't know how many of you've seen, some brands will actually, in baby food and so many things, they will say DHA fortified, because a major chunk of that omega-3, the good aspect, is needed even in growing children for their brain development. Okay, so apart that, the ghee, the oils itself are absolutely needed for an athlete, because without that, the ADEK, what we're talking of, these vitamins, they will not be absorbed because they get stored in the liver. And also, you cannot overdo these. Like somebody asked me about toxicity. Yes, there is going to be a nutrient-nutrient interaction, meaning if you excessively overdo vitamin A, and there is a high amount of toxicity, meaning that you are consuming too much vitamin A, it will automatically reduce the absorption of vitamin D. So there is going to be some interaction there, and that is why you have to do everything in a balance. Now, the most important aspect we would like to highlight here is that the vitamin requirement itself is energy metabolism. Like we talked of some pathways, right? How the energy gets released when we eat our food. And there is an entire fine, delicate pathway where the body always tries to remain in a homeostasis. We talked of how there is about over 4 grams of sugar in the blood at all given times for us to be active. So how does this level always remain constant, right? So you guys are able to hear and see me, right? Okay, so at all given times, there is these intricate pathways that continue, and we have these vitamins that are involved in the metabolic pathway. Like you have your B1, which is called as thiamine. TPP is thiamine pyrophosphate. Similarly, you have B2 called riboflavin, which is flavin mononucleotide, flavin adenine dinucleotide, which is a pathway of the tricarboxylic acid cycle, which is TCA cycle. Similarly, niacin or nicotinic acid, which is again B3, what we typically call them as B complex, B1, B2, B3. So NAD and NADH are again a pathway which is used in your tricarboxylic acid cycle. You have biotin again, which is another B vitamin. Definitely, you have your see here it says you have your pantothenic acid or B5, which is a part of coenzyme A, which is basically conversion of where your glucose is breaking down from pyruvate, it goes into acetyl coenzyme A, which goes into TCA cycle. Similarly, in transamination, where you are transferring amino acid from one to another, where the body can synthesize its proteins, you have your B6 called pyridoxine, and PLP, pyridoxal phosphate, is again a coenzyme. So B vitamins are actually a very, very important requirement. So I'm just taking you through the, just don't worry much about these biochemistry or the nutritional biochemistry pathways, but just this is just to give you it's so technical, honestly I think it's not my forte too. Okay, but here if you see how these B vitamins, how they play a very important role for energy release. That's one of the most important functions of the B vitamins, B1 and also B12. So these are the pathways where we've talked about breakdown of glucose and how it goes into the electron transport chain, and where your energy, we talked about adenosine triphosphate, or how the currency, the body uses your energy. Similarly, we talked of creatine phosphate. If you recollect the first chapter in carbohydrates, when you do high intensity workout, there's if you see the creatine monohydrate, which we'll talk in the sports specific chapters too, how creatine phosphate or how creatine monohydrate is the supplement that is used in order to kind of totally beef up the creatine in the muscle, where it donates one phosphate molecule, and ADP again reconverts back to ATP for the high intensity exercise. Those are the pathways. So here again, if you see in the tricarboxylic acid cycle, B1, B2 being used as coenzymes for the energy release. Similarly, in the breakdown of the fats also, which will go eventually back into the, once it is acetyl coenzyme, it goes back into tricarboxylic acid cycle or the TCA cycle. So everywhere these, again, this is protein breakdown. So proteins actually are not the fuel for exercise. I'd like to highlight that again. So unless and until you are underfueled and you have not eaten, you're not taking care of your pre-workout, your recovery, that is where you have breakdown of the muscles, and that is where you can, in those extreme conditions is where you can look at your amino acids that can actually again become source of fuel for your working muscle. But that's in extreme cases, but amino acids or proteins are not actually the fuel for a general working condition. So as I talked about, why we are saying that we need to consume your whole grains. If you see the guidelines, we say that, not we, I mean the recommendation is half your intake should come as whole grains, and that could be from hand pounded rice to millets to typically traditionally what we ate in India as your rajmuri rice or your red rice and things like that, which basically, yes, in fact even our unpolished coastal areas, what they use the grains, they are very high in B1 thiamine. So as much as we've already talked of complex carbohydrates to simple carbohydrates. As much as an athlete can definitely eat refined grains, including white rice. So, however, you have some important aspects which come from, especially in the vegetarian diet, it can be whole grains. Of course, in the non-vegetarian food, if you typically do eat poultry or you consume non-veg, you will also get them from non-vegetarian foods. So similarly, now B6 and B12 extremely important for the reason that interconnection to iron metabolism, because B12 itself, which is cyanocobalamin, is required for absorption of the iron. And apart that, nerve conduction, extremely important. You want to have a skill-based sport, or for that matter, even if you are playing team sports, you're dribbling, you're a footballer, you're doing badminton, you're doing your racket sports, where you need precision and you have to be very agile. And it is obviously your nerves. It's not your muscle that's contracting, but there's a very fine correlation between your synapse or your nerve impulses that are being sent. And apart your so many other things, you definitely need these vitamins. And of course, folic acid. Folacin itself has got so many important functions as enzymes and coenzymes, and definitely your DNA RNA synthesis to RBC, your hemoglobin formation. And also homocysteine is, again, guys, you must pay heed here that when you eat also obviously high amounts of protein and red meats, homocysteine again is a breakdown of one amino acid, which is essential amino acid methionine. Now, based on the age of the athlete, if they are a master athlete and they're slightly older in the middle age, then you must also understand what is their overall medical history. Do they have plaque formation and predisposition to atherosclerosis, meaning the blockage of the artery walls? So there they can have this risk when homocysteine goes up. then automatically it's used as a biomarker for tracking your heart health. So, then you use a combination of B6, B12, folic acid, because that itself can scavenge and remove reduce the level of homocysteine. Okay. So then we have the water soluble vitamins. I've already talked about it, why it is very important. So B and C, there are a bunch of B vitamins and also vitamin C. Now B vitamins, I've been already talking to you of where we can get it, and especially athletes have a higher need of these vitamins because of the high energy demand. Okay, also as your calorie intake goes up, obviously automatically it correlates to higher need of the B vitamins, right? So higher intensity exercise, and also in a weight restricted kind of a sport where you have to be very careful. Sometimes when you consume, we talked of energy availability, right? EA. So energy availability itself, there are many formulas where we calculate based on your requirement and your exercise time. So there, your energy availability, if you're looking at lowering your body mass, automatically there is something called as, we talked about it in the previous class, or in the earlier time, we would have touched about this, about relative energy deficiency. Okay, where there is lesser food intake, so automatically then there is a problem of having deficiency, or especially in vegetarians or vegans, when there is a challenge of say B12 is available only in non-vegetarian food. So those kind of food, sometimes you can be predisposed to some nutritional deficiency. And I think with relating to relative energy deficiency, we will also talk about the female athlete triad. Okay, probably in the weight category sports, we will definitely deal with it again. So definitely, do you think athletes have a higher need of these B vitamins? So referring to research study here, and yes, there is definitely a higher need for athletes, because there is a higher demand of the exercise. Now, vitamin C, that is our next water soluble vitamin. Now we've already, I think last time somebody asked me, should we take collagen, unless and until there is a requirement for say injury management. Somebody in fact asked me about keratin last time, I remember, and in fact I was mentioning keratin is a tertiary protein, so meaning that is found only in hair and nails. But as long as you're taking good quality protein, which is actually superior, where all the essential amino acids are required, unnecessary supplementation is not needed at all. But collagen, of course, is quite beneficial, especially if you're looking for those connective tissue injury, typically a ligament tear and things like that. Okay, so you kind of that's where it can be of a value addition. So it definitely improves wound healing. Like I told you, it's a cementing material, and extremely important for vegetarians, because vitamin C helps in the conversion of the ferric to ferrous ion. Whereas in the non-vegetarian, athletes, very easily the iron gets absorbed, because the iron itself is in the ready-made form called as the heme ion, where it doesn't need to have a conversion. So absorption is superior, and that is why if you see non-vegetarian food options are easy for improving the iron status. Whereas in the vegetarian, there is also a nutrient interaction, meaning that a lot of anti-nutritional properties can bring down the absorption. So vitamin C can be a good food option to include with iron-rich source in vegetarian athletes, especially when you know that they have low iron status or low hemoglobin status. So vitamin C also has a lot of other important functions. And one important thing as an athlete is, when there is a training-induced inflammation, exercise-induced free radicals are formed, especially when you do higher intensity workout, longer duration of the workout. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Like I was talking to you about how there are stress hormones like epinephrine, norepinephrine. That is a short-term hormone. Say, for example, like I give a common example always, if a dog is chasing you and you have to run, the body is not going to say, hey, I have eaten my, banana now for my pre-workout, so I have to extract the glucose out of my digestion. So let me just focus on digestion. It's not going to say that. It's just going to say that you got to save your life. It's called the flight and fight hormone. So, or if somebody's coming to thrash you, and I mean, I'm not saying you should do that, but you're going to get defensive, and all your defense system is going to get perked up. So you're in a fight mode. So cortisol is a long-term stress hormone. Now, especially when athletes, like I've been talking to you about, this training periodization and the training load, whenever there is a very intense load and it's a pre-competition cycle, recovery becomes extremely important, because this cortisol itself can be very harmful for an athlete, because it can lower the immunity, lower your muscle mass, because cortisol is a hormone that is going to keep going into gluconeogenesis, meaning a lot of glucose gets formed. And that's where I remember I was telling you that in an extreme case, and especially if you're not going to be eating well, during your workout, before your workout, that also can increase your cortisol. So that means that because you are not eating, then the muscle can break down, and the amino acid can itself become into synthesizing of glucose for the energy production. So cortisol can be helpful in many times, but long-term cortisol, when it is not resolved and handled well, so that can be a challenge. So vitamin C rich foods can reduce your response to these stressors. And like I already told you, it can blunt the cortisol and reduce the risk of infection. Particularly in athletes, we know that immunity can be lowered, especially with the higher intensity and longer duration of workout. So upper respiratory tract infection, what we call as URTI, typically is also very common. So that is the first indicator to say that something is going off and you're not eating enough fruits and vegetables in your diet. So ROS, reactive oxygen species. So when your food is very high in fruits, vegetables, especially vitamin C, so that itself can lower these stressors. So any new questions that have come in? I've explained that just now. Vegetarian diets and collagen. I think collagen comes from only non-veg, right? Bones. I think I mentioned this last time, Simran. So coconut oil, I've already talked about. If a sports person asks how to allot nutrition for healthy skin, okay, now skin is again a matter of so many parameters, age related and genetic endowment, and hormones, because in the menstrual cycle, or if you're a young girl, there will be some hormonal influence to your skin, acne and so many other things. Now in the diet, skin itself is also nothing but your protein, right? So you have to have adequate protein in your diet. A lot of micronutrients we talked of. Now we are going to talk about zinc, copper. So good skin is also very important, with all these polyphenols, catechins, which we will talk about now. Also the what is that, omega-3. Okay, now the next question, I'm taking questions as it's coming. Okay, is that okay? Some research says collagen is not absorbed well. Your take on that? Yes, I think so. That is why you combine collagen with vitamin C to improve the absorption. Not for that matter, digestion, absorption, and bioavailability is very complex, which we will discuss now. You might say calcium, milk is the richest source of calcium, almost 250 mg in 250 ml. But if you see the absorption, less than 30%. Iron, we will talk about now, is I think less than 20% absorption. Vitamin C reduces cortisol. I just talked to you because it's an antioxidant. So whenever you have two cells, and one cell has lost its, that one of the ions, like that anion or whatever, what happens is free radicals is when there is a basically imbalance of that cell. So what they do is it sets off a chain reaction, and one cell, when it is unstable and has lost its electron, it will start eating, or it will steal. It's like this. Sometimes, as what you see as a joke, you have two kids, one has finished eating the chocolate, the other one is still eating, you want his share also, so you try to get a little from him. So it's like that. Once you are off balance, you try to steal the electron from the next cell. So it sets off a chain reaction, and that is what leads to all your process of, like, skin. You talked of aging, sagging skin, inflammation, okay, diseases, illnesses start like this. So what do antioxidants do? They are like an umpire. They step in and say, okay, two of you, please do not fight amongst yourself. I will donate my electron to you, and the antioxidants will give up their component. They're anyway part of food, right? So they will stabilize that imbalance and they will again maintain harmony within the cell. Oh dear, whey protein. Guys, we finished protein chapter. We are now in micronutrients. Who is this? Luna, you're too late. Whey protein can be an extremely good addition because of leucine content. It's a high quality protein, fast absorbing. So if the athlete is deficient, particularly vegetarian, and does not have enough good eating habits, it can be good. Plant collagen builders are available in the market. Okay, guys. Okay, I'm extremely sorry. I must probably update myself on the plant collagen. Also, if you see, there are a lot of options available. You just have to be able to bridge the gap to see what is ideal. Like for that matter, we talked of how pea protein is there. I told you it lacks methionine. So you have to also see the feasibility. Like for example, you have the omega-3 available as krill and the seaweed also, right? That is also available. But you have to remember that the most potent form, like for example walnuts, you have chia seeds, which are also ALA, alpha linolenic acid. The absorption of alpha linolenic, the omega-3 from the plant is less than 15%, actually sometimes even lesser than 5 to 15%. So when you say plant collagen, or for that matter like plant-based B12, now, these are some complicated questions. Even as a dietitian, I find it difficult to, contribute to a very good discussion, because sometimes as dietitians, we know that like B12 comes mainly from animal source. Okay, so when we say it's plant, see, plants also have some important nutrients, including omega-3. Vitamin E. But please remember, you will eat to like spinach. Spinach actually is the poorest source of iron, though it is touted for or claimed to have a lot of iron. So you have to remember you to eat this much of spinach to get that little amount of iron. So with plant collagen, I have to probably update my research a little more and understand how will that collagen be beneficial, because collagen, by what I understand, is mainly coming from the animal foods. Okay, so similar like whey comes only from dairy and otherwise not from leucine content. We remember we talked about that. But why general? Guys, ask specific questions related to the slide. No, you're going ad hoc and all over the place. This chapter micronutrient is not even related to collagen, Baba. If they're not taking collagen, will it make a difference? But you have to figure why they're taking the collagen. Is there an injury and they need to look at rehabilitation? So just because there is collagen, you don't need it. You have to understand who needs it, why they need it. Okay, Arjun has raised a hand. Yes, Arjun. What is Arjun saying? Arjun, I think, has raised a hand, Janvi.
She has lowered down her hand. If she wants, I am allowing her.
Okay.
Anju, you can ask your question. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, we are in good time, right? Okay, we still have 45 minutes. Okay, I have lots to finish just in the beginning. Yes, guys, any questions quickly?
She's not the right thing.
So we'll continue, Janvi?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So now also with coming to this continuation of this chapter, a lot of people think that you are exercising, so you will need vitamin C enriched water. You will need some vitamin C enriched electrolytes, which are energy drinks and hydration solution. So if you see, a lot of these products come as antioxidants. Okay, so you have to definitely take that with a pinch of salt. And you have to see, because what is the data saying, the research, the latest evidence suggesting. So of course, those who are into exercise and for improvement of exercise, definitely there is a higher need of antioxidant, undoubtedly. Okay, that's what this slide is telling you. But how do we get those antioxidants? Okay, that's the next question. So if at all you take the supplementation, that is not needed at all. Now also with the B vitamins, one important slide here is what is happening. You see here in the picture, what are you seeing? You're actually seeing, say, a broth or say a wet soup. What is happening here? If at all you cook the plants or your fresh produce in excess water, there's something called as leaching. So B vitamins, like for example, broccoli also has vitamin C, and broccoli can never be consumed raw. Okay, ideally it should be steamed a wee bit. But however, if you are not steaming it and you are boiling it into a huge broth like this, unless and until you consume that water, then heat and cooking can actually reduce, for that matter, even light, right? Like orange juice, you squeeze a fruit and you leave it exposed to light and air, it is oxidized and it is dead, meaning that it is useless. Okay, because vitamin C ascorbic acid converts to dehydroascorbic acid, and in no time that dies further, it is degraded and it is useless. Similarly, B vitamins, one important thing for you to note is that whenever you cook it, okay, especially vitamin C, or even for that matter B vitamins, if you are rinsing your say your red rice too aggressively and the coating gets washed off in the water, you're actually losing that coating. Yes, you can eat your whole fruit during your workout positively, why not? But what is important is you don't need a synthetic antioxidant in the electrolyte drink is what I'm saying. Okay, so how do you, that's what I was saying. Now the next question, I think it will answer for this question that you asked. What happens when we are looking at the food as an antioxidant source, which is the best way? Okay, and otherwise, like I told you, if you take it unnecessarily from a tablet or a nutritional supplement, that can actually dampen your training adaptation. That is what the science is saying. So your ACE vitamins, that is your dark yellow, orange, green pigments. Vitamin C, typically we know it's we always associate it with citrus fruit like orange, but you also have a lot of other vitamin C, simple things like even guava, papaya, pineapple, strawberry. Vitamin C is quite present from green chili, capsicum to anything and everything. And similarly, vitamin E, that is in almonds, wheat bran, oat bran. Okay, all the brands have vitamin E. Sunflower oil actually has the richest source of vitamin E. Yes, Renu has, guys, just if you can keep putting your questions in the chat box also, we can take, because what happens is when you raise your hand, I am stopping here. Yes, Renu, tell me. All right, let me proceed. So, so these antioxidants, like I was explaining to you, how the cell wall loses or the cells lose an electrolyte, electrolyte, an electron, and they become unstable. And that is where and this is all oxygen dependent. Okay, so it's an oxidative pathway. So then these antioxidants from the food donate their own electrons and kind of stabilize the cells in the body, and they reduce the inflammation. So you look at dark colored fruit, vegetables. Okay, the darker they are, the better. Like you have a lot of these pigments. Like if you see tomatoes are absorbed better after cooking. So actually, as much as we say that some nutrients are best when they're eaten raw, like vitamin C. Okay, you cannot cook, say, a broccoli or a bell pepper or capsicum because the vitamin C dies. Whereas some things actually absorb better on cooking, and that is lycopene, that is in tomato, all your pigments, like your lutein, zeaxanthin in your palak, definitely your lycopene. So these things are enhanced on, cooking, and definitely some amount of oil is needed. We just talked about some important functions of oil. So oils are required for absorption of these pigments too. And I already told you these food options. Okay. So what happens if you unnecessarily overdo the supplementation? And that can actually stall or reduce your actual benefit of exercise. So also, when you unnecessarily take these tablets, which can come as, say, vitamin E, vitamin C, definitely there's a cost involved. And like if you see your glutathione peroxidase or superoxide dismutase, A lot of these are based out of your antioxidant system itself, with very closely the body maintains that with the balance of selenium, vitamin E, which you will learn in the coming slides soon. So the body itself has a quite a strong first line of defense as an immune system in the body. Okay, so obviously you look at taking these from the food, and that could be what we say as polyphenols, which are antioxidants, and that comes from your darker colors, berries, okay, your strawberries, to anything that is deep in color, jamun, which was very recently in season. Then we're talking of these catechins, which is the epicalactocatechin gallate, or your theophlavin that comes from your black tea. Similarly, now curcumin, a lot of people have been talking of, and curcumin extract, now quite popular world over, of how our turmeric has become quite like our coconut oil, cold pressed coconut oil, for a lot of antibacterial, antiviral properties. So similarly, curcumin also. But however, curcumin, guys, you have to remember that there is very little curcumin. I think it's about less than 5%, I think. So there's very little curcumin in the turmeric. So even to get what about 60 or 100 mg of curcumin, you have to please remember that there's 200 mg in over a teaspoon. So which means that, and those guys who are under high stress, peak competition cycle, they may need sometimes even up to 500 mg of curcumin. Like with coronavirus we're talking now, somebody who has had COVID, you want to do 500 mg of curcumin. So think of how much turmeric they have to eat. So you can't rely only on food. That is where the supplements become a value addition. And also curcumin is absorbed, the pigment is absorbed better when you add a bit of pepper, because the pepperine, or the component of the pepper, and oil. So if you see the curcumin, it's even the turmeric root is better, though it has very high anti-nutritional property called oxalate. So boiling a bit of that, curcumin or that turmeric in the oil, and also using with pepper, that can enhance absorption. So here again, we are moving to the fat soluble vitamins, like one gentleman mentioned right in the beginning, right? So we are talking of vitamin D. Now, anywhere between 400 IU upwards, you can use the vitamin D. Okay, for a normal healthy individual, that may be needed, unless and until there's a deficiency in some, from anywhere children upward 9 to 10 years. And now it is the vitamin D itself is a pandemic, and a lot of individuals definitely have to, especially athletes who have high training load, because vitamin D is a immune modulating vitamin, meaning that it has a direct impact on your health, because it can then lower, if there's lowered immunity because of the training, if you are not having a healthy balanced diet. There's so many things. It's not just fruit, vegetables, right? From energy availability, carbohydrate intake, omega-3, from anti-inflammatory function of the fats. We have talked of so many things, from polyphenols, antioxidants, everything is interrelated. So it's not just the macronutrient, and then you have to augment that or add your micronutrient. So if there's a deficiency, then based on the age and the serum level, meaning the blood test, which is used as a diagnostic tool to see what level the person is deficient at, then you do the protocol strategy of how you do the supplementation. Now, vitamin D can be synthesized in the skin itself, and cholesterol is used as a raw material. But however, it's very complicated, because you need the sun exposure for UVB rays, and that is only available in midday. Now, the area, like in a tropical country like India, yes, and also based on our skin color. So there are so many factors that influence vitamin D synthesis, right? And also your state of your liver and your kidney. Somebody who has diabetes or a kidney abnormality or fatty liver, if you're highly overweight or obese, so then it can obviously become challenging, because obese individuals by default have very low vitamin D. Now, you do get vitamin D in very small amounts of food. So I think what it is, cod liver oil, oily fish, and egg yolks, because vitamin D is not available in vegetarian food, and unless and until it is sun-grown mushroom, which is actually basically vitamin D2, which is not absorbed. What is absorbed is calcirol, which is D3. Okay, so that vitamin D is not just for bones and teeth, it is also for your brain, how you feel, from depression prevention to absorption of calcium. Definitely your muscle mass, it has definitely a very high impact on for athletes, for your overall well-being in terms of recovery after training, injury prevention. Okay, so and obviously, like I told you, because of its immunomodulatory function, it can reduce the risk of infection, and that is why and prevent diabetes, very, very important. If you're overweight, obese, it can manage, definitely help in controlling weight and from prevention of diabetes too. So vitamin D is definitely extremely crucial. And now this is a very interesting slide here. I'm quoting a few research articles to say that even in the athletic community, and you think that a badminton player, probably is playing indoor, that is why he's deficient. But if you actually even see a tennis player who's playing the sport outside, will also be deficient. So this is something that is quite intriguing as to why, and especially in the urban setting with the pollution, where you have the carbon monoxide of the automobile exhaust, which can kind of deflate the UVB rays, and the synthesis will not occur even if you are in the sun. So that's unfortunately very, very complicated. So all kinds of athletes, including outdoor, sports, can have low levels of vitamin D, and that's why I think regular screening is very important. And also females who are very conscious, and if you're using a sunscreen, that can kind of again lead to blocking of the bare naked skin to the exposure of the sun, whatever little is being found. So definitely again the weather conditions, and that SAD, seasonal affective disorder, in the European and Western countries, where that there is a lack of sunlight itself, right? During the for that matter, even in India now we are in monsoons, and there is a very kind of irregular availability of the sun rays itself, right? Because of the monsoons, either it's cloudy or raining, and of course you also have to have the time that you are out in the sun at that particular time only, right? Again here, based on the melanin content of the skin. So obviously darker guys need to be in the skin for slightly lesser time, because then the vitamin D can sorry, did I get that right? Darker guys need slightly lesser, and the lighter skin tone needs a little longer. Okay, so I hope I got that right. High melanin, so because there is a correlation to the vitamin D synthesis itself. Now, vitamin D, I've already told you, is stored in the liver, and vitamin interaction, and one can lower the absorption of the other. Similarly, sometimes in athletes, we have to give them a compliance check, because sometimes you tell them to dose at a certain level and they overdo it, and it can lead to toxicity, because these vitamins are stored in the liver. So based on the blood tests or the diagnostic results, we kind of gauge as to where you want. And definitely athletes have to be on the slightly midpoint, neither too low, not too high, but depending again on what is the need. So is there a injury? Is there a, like a fracture? Because athletes are prone to some of these injuries. And especially if there's some bone related concern, then definitely you have to look at higher calcium and vitamin D intake. So, and then you do the kind of loading dose or maintenance dose, and you kind of monitor that. Definitely these things are quite dynamic, and may need to be periodically checked. Here I can ask you guys for this. Somebody has raised a question. Yes. Lighter skinned people should expose for shorter time, and lighter skinned people should expose for shorter period, and darker for less. Thank you, Sindhu. Okay, I know sometimes in the rhythm of the flow, sometimes, I know it, it's all there, but you're speaking from your brain, and sometimes there's a slip of the mind, not a slip of the tongue. Thanks for pointing. Okay, so guys, also in the chat box, if you may share your answer. Which of the following is not an ideal option for vitamin D? Okay, good. Everybody is saying D. Any reason why? Very good. That means all of you have paid attention to my slide. Well done. Oh, wonderful. Everybody is typing D. Awesome. I think I should have more of these Q&As, right? I think I can see so many responses coming. Very good. Overdosing. No, not overdosing. There's a nutrient-nutrient interaction. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for all the responses. Yes, very good, Naina. Wonderful. I think I will have some of these questions in the coming slides. Okay. Give me a thumbs up or yes if you feel that we can have some interaction going that way. If you need me to include more Q&A and some interaction there. Okay, thanks Yuesh. Okay, so yes, Sindhu. Okay, wonderful. That means I have more work coming. Let me work. Let me keep some of these ready. Okay, thanks. Okay, so now moving on. Yes, so cod liver oil, guys. Cod liver oil is not omega-3. Cod liver oil is also very high in vitamin A. So that's why it can lead to a nutrient-nutrient interaction. Okay. Now, also somebody keeping tab of time. Oh, good. We have over half hour. Okay. So moving on to the next slide. All right. Now coming to the minerals. So we talked of all the vitamins. Actually, I must be very grateful that it's a wonderful session so far and it's going well because I had my vaccine yesterday evening and I was feeling quite miserable after the second dose. And I hope everybody in our audience is also vaccinated. So I, as it is, had to wait very late because in Bangalore, we ran out of vaccine. When they announced that below 45 years, you will eventually be eligible, we ran out of vaccine. So I was in one of those and I had to wait for almost a month to get my first dose. So eventually after 84 days, I was able to get my second dose. So yesterday I was washed off and today morning also I was just praying to God that I am okay. Except for that one minor slip up, I think I'm doing all right. Okay, so so that is the continuation to minerals. And so anything that we take in the larger amount, especially guys, in the athletes, we have very crucial functions of calcium, magnesium, salt, which is sodium chloride, and of course definitely potassium also, because muscle contraction is related to a whole lot of these. Apart that, we have definitely the iron. Now iron is what is needed for the hemoglobin, so very important functions, and zinc and copper, selenium, micronutrients that can contribute to the immunity, so they are very important. Now we've been talking a lot about the red blood cells. The pigment in the red blood cell is nothing but the hemoglobin, which actually is a part of the protein, and it binds to the iron. And that is what is oxyhemoglobin. So it binds to the oxygen and takes it from the lungs and it delivers to the functioning muscle, because everything is, you remember the pathways we talked of, glycolytic pathway where there is a breakdown of glucose in the presence of oxygen. And then you have the alactic system, which is the anaerobic pathway. If at all the intensity of the workout becomes very strenuous, where your muscles are overworking, but there's lesser oxygen, that is where lactic acid builds up. So oxygen is very important for the contracting muscle or the functioning of the muscle. So it's very important for the athlete because it can prevent the onset of the tiredness or fatigue. So performance can be directly linked to your hemoglobin. And in the previous slides, we studied about how we have hemoglobin itself as a interrelated nutrient interaction, because iron is going to be absorbed, which you will notice in the next coming slides. Iron is very complicated and there are several nutrients that go into the synthesis of the red blood cells, and not just hemoglobin. So there are many markers of the iron status from, you look at your transferrin, you look at your transferrin saturation, ferritin. So there are basic recommended dietary allowance that, or your blood parameters that ought to be maintained for an athlete. So as I was just telling you, somebody asked me about bioavailability. So if you see the absorption of iron, how complicated it is, because you need in vegetarians vitamin C for conversion of ferric to ferrous. You need the intrinsic factor in the stomach, because that is what is needed, and the stomach acids, HCl. Acids have very important function in the stomach, not just enzymes. So the presence of the HCl or the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, because that is what improves the absorption of all these minerals from calcium, magnesium, iron, and also your B12, which I talked of, cyanocobalamin, because then it can be your pernicious anemia, or so many other complicated pathways which are nutrient dependent. Similarly, even copper improves the absorption of the iron. And I'm not able to see the last one. What is that? Folic acid, folacin. Yes, we went over that in just earlier slide. So there are certain nutrients that improve the absorption of iron. Also, there are nutrients which are not very favorable for the absorption of the iron. And typically in the vegetarian diets, what you see, dark green leafy vegetables are very high in oxalic acid or oxalates. Similarly, the whole grains and pulses have phytic acid or phytates, and that lower the absorption of the iron. Similarly, eating, say for example, you made a very green leafy vegetable like amaranth, which is very high in iron, and you are eating that with curd, okay, or you're eating a non-veg and you're eating something like, say something milk based or paneer, like palak paneer. So what happens is, when there is an interaction between the iron and calcium, because they have the similar pathway, they fight with one another for absorption, and they can reduce the absorption of the iron itself. Similarly, you have tannins in tea, caffeine in coffee. So many of these nutrients, that's why we say space your tea coffee 1 hour after the food minimum, or sometimes even longer, for better absorption of iron. Also, requirement of the iron. Whenever you have a higher training intensity, the exercise itself increases the hormone hepcidin, and that can lower the absorption of the iron. So how can you look at that? How can you look at controlling hepcidin? So as we have talked about the carbohydrate intake, not just before the workout, because if you see in an athlete, anywhere upwards from 8 gram onwards, we can look at anywhere 7 to 8 gram. You can increase the carbohydrate intake for an athlete who has a higher need. Somebody has raised a hand. Yes. Okay, guys. So whenever you have high carbohydrate intake itself, it can kind of adjust or monitor this. Similarly, it's so important that you are looking at your energy drink, which we have talked of. In tomorrow's chapter is hydration. We will deal with this in detail, how hydration can improve performance. So similarly, carbohydrate intake during your exercise, and also periodization. Periodization is all about how you can play along and place your nutrient, not just in the day, but probably even in the week, and definitely on a rest day. So this is an interesting slide. If at all your levels of your iron itself are low, we are talking of how there is a homeostasis, or a very fine, delicate balance in the way that the body functions itself. So if you notice here, how even low iron status itself can actually, thwart the increase of the hepcidin hormone, so that there is more iron absorption from the food. So also your iron itself can be spaced. Sometime, it's actually very challenging. Practically, if you see, we have athletes who finish training at sometimes 9 in the night, or sometimes close to, say, we have badminton players who also do not just an early morning session, they also do a midday session. And that actually closes at lunchtime. And sometimes they may have even a gym after that in the afternoon. So it's very difficult to kind of, organize your food. So all in all, you have to just see what is also practical, because I know that there are a lot of, practical challenges. So risk of anemia can increase, especially in this, what do you say, in this age group. If you're a girl and a female, especially if you are menstruating, and based on your flow, you can lose iron. Growing children have a higher need, definitely. Then you have in relative energy deficiency, if you're not eating enough, that can be one of the reasons. We've been talking of breakdown of RBCs, okay, and that can also be seen in foot strike hemolysis, which is basically breakdown of the RBCs due to impact. Similarly, in vegetarians and vegans, we talked in detail of how there's a nutrient-nutrient interaction. Also, one thing I'd like to highlight here is there are simulators which can give you that training environment. If you go to these high-end fitness centers, or you go to say a physiotherapist, or a sports physician, they have these kind of training adaptations that are artificially also offered. You don't necessarily have to go to Leh Ladakh only to increase your hemoglobin. But yes, higher altitude means there's hypoxia, lower oxygen in the environment at a higher at a height in the environment. So altitude can automatically induce erythropoiesis or red blood synthesis, because then the body is not getting enough oxygen, so automatically body is pushing training adaptations. So obviously, but ensure that you are definitely taking care of certain monitoring, where you have your blood test, you do your supplementation, definitely your also the food and training periodization. Calcium, very, very important for bones, teeth, and most importantly, 1% what is present in the blood is also needed for your muscle contraction and blood clots. Yes, even blood clots, nerve conduction. So calcium has that need. And definitely calcium again, based on, we're in calcium only, right? Okay. So especially what happens is, in a female who's having overtraining, or she's not having good recovery strategies, there is something called as irregular menstrual cycle. Or if you have PCOD, then amenorrhea, the estrogen itself has a impact on your lean body mass and bone mineral density. So there you can have risk of injury in terms of fractures. So girls and teenagers, if you have say a bone fracture, those guys will definitely need more. And definitely even in vegans, where you have higher oxalates, phytates, where the absorption can come down. Now magnesium, again very crucial for an athlete, and you do have plenty of awesome magnesium rich foods, from cashews to almonds to your pumpkin seeds, and all of them do have calcium. But however, for that matter, magnesium, the chlorophyll, the green pigment of the leaf itself is actually magnesium. Okay, but considering nutrient interaction and how an athlete may need a higher amount, because if you see anywhere 400 mg upwards is what an athlete may need. And magnesium is extremely important for even the muscle relaxation, and that can kind of really boost the the process of delayed onset muscle soreness, or for that matter recovery process. So I think that is the reason that apart so many functions is very, very crucial, and it's a coenzyme, or it's involved in a lot of metabolic functions. So if you see here, to give you some example, there's muscle contraction, nerve conduction, and definitely even absorption of calcium. Magnesium is involved, and from immunity to performance. And definitely you're going to lose it in also your sweat based on the training conditions. With coronavirus, yes, a lot of zinc which came into the highlight. So zinc is very important as a for an immune function, definitely for wound healing also. For that matter, even your sperm count, right? For the virility to testosterone, zinc has got very important functions. So however, if you unnecessarily overdo this, which is not needed sometimes, unless and until there is an issue of consistent illness, so you really have to see who are the ones who need the supplement, but definitely look at food mainly. Okay, so because there's nutrient interaction, so it can reduce the absorption of iron and copper if you overdo the zinc. Now I think this is selenium, and I've talked of how the body's immune function, glutathione peroxidase itself is dependent on selenium and vitamin E. So if you are looking at overall good intake of your balanced diet, so nuts and seeds are quite important. So if you see here, of course, Brazil nut is an awfully expensive imported nut, but you don't have to always do Brazil nuts. Even from a handful of assorted nuts, including cashews, are quite good actually for even selenium. From chicken to, of course, oyster is the richest source again for zinc also. even muscles, what we say, right? I think that's what you call them, no? Even if you see selenium. Now, the AIS Group A evidence medicinal supplements, again, is evidence-based, so they fall under the first category, which is proven. So just to run you very quickly, I think we do have time. Okay, so this is, just give me one moment. I'm just trying to see which nutrient is this. Okay, this is on the right side, vitamin D. So yes, from the youngest of the preteens to even a master athlete, we do see deficiency. And many times, if at all the training load is high, there is definitely going to be a challenge, and you will see that their recovery is very poor. And not to mention, the stalling or the plateau of the fat mass. So we do notice all of these, but of course, I think it's also like a parts of the puzzle in so many ways that you look at it not just from supplementation, definitely from the food first, adjusting energy availability and also the macronutrient intake. So whenever you correct this from food and also the right protocol of the supplementation, you definitely notice, especially in younger athletes, you will notice that they are not only increasing muscle mass, but they also grow tall. Now again, this goes without saying. We always do sometimes notice there is a lower hemoglobin due to so many complications from hemoglobin, B12, and you correlate all of these with the clinical symptoms and have a very detailed, lengthy discussion to see what is going on, training load, to so many aspects of the type of sport itself. And when you kind of take care of that with food, like educate them, and also with the family, parents, and also work with a coach, that's when you notice that there is an improvement in the performance, for the reason that there's better stamina. And not to mention, because your oxygen carrying capacity itself is dependent with the ability of the oxyhemoglobin, where the pigment can carry the oxygen, right? So obviously overall, but these parameters are also very slow, guys. You have to remember that this doesn't happen overnight. Body composition changes to any parameters of these are very slow, especially if you're doing oral supplementation, and not to mention with food, that's even slower. Bioavailability is very complicated, so you have to kind of be patient and allow a few months time. Okay, and always work with a qualified dietitian. Even, like I always humbly say, even now there's so many things I do not know, and we have to just keep updating, brushing up, reading, read up on research articles. So definitely food first. There is no second question to that. Monitor regularly, and you can look at regularly, then adjusting the need. So, and yes, for those of you who would like to either reach me on my email or follow me on my social media handles, this is my link. So over to Janvi. Oh dear, not one almond, Baba. 1 ounce of almond, about 30 grams, has 80 mg of almond. Thank heavens I know some answers. Otherwise, it's like you're a computer, you need to know everything. Multivitamin, what was that? Also, guys, if you can share your feedback with me, I don't know, in the chat box, or I hope you guys are enjoying these sessions, and I wish I could see you guys, but good multivitamin or individual vitamin, that cannot be generalized with. You have to definitely see what the individual needs, and honestly, not everybody needs it, unless and until it's a very high training load or there is inability to eat. That is okay. Thank you, Sindhu. Good. Yeah, do share your feedback, because I otherwise don't get to know, and I notice you all like that question and answer. I'll try to have more of that. Okay. Do let me know how you would like it, because honestly, it's your class. Oh, guys, don't ask me such, Prajwal, don't ask me such complicated questions. Guys, don't ask me some things related to brand and all. I like to steer clear of it. Kindly use only the informed choice for sports, BSCGs, consumer lab, what else? USP. Please, guys, I don't know what is your background, Prajwal, but if you are looking at, or kindly direct them to me, say, please see a, International Olympic Committee holder, postgraduate diploma, who still does not know everything, right? Please work with a qualified dietitian or a sports medicine doctor. Kindly do not recommend ad hoc, supplements. Especially supplements, a very sticky matter. So it can be very complicated, and there are a lot of, in fact, we've had a lot of research studies with liver damage and so many other harmful things that have happened. Recently, one of that in the news, the boxing, one of the boxing athlete passed away because of the weight making. She was in that ripping phase of that, the last 24 hours of dehydration, right? Who passed away of a heart attack, right? So these things you keep hearing because of so many things. They use diuretics, which are again going to kind of wash out the urine. Oh, we'll deal about it in the strength and power sports, of how it can be very harmful. So guys, with these brands, kindly just be very, very careful, and steer clear of all of these which do not have, especially if you're dealing with a elite sport. See, there are many types of athletes: recreational, who play just for fun. Then you have professional athletes who are trying to pay competition, elite athletes who represent the country for national, international levels. So those kind of guys have to just use dope free certifications. Okay. Okay, Yashaswini, thank you. Good session. Thank you. Wonderful. Oh, nice. Thank you. Thank you, Neha. Preeti, wonderful. Thank you. Amshu, good. What is it good to cook veg in microwave? Absolutely. If you see the USDA, I've actually written to them once because I used to have so much doubts about actually microwave, guys. It is basically those very light, what are that frequency? It uses electromagnetic waves. Honestly, your mobile phone and Instagram is more harmful because it is radiating so much, electromagnetic waves as you are using it all the time. So microwave actually cooks the food in very little time, and other than pressure cooking and steaming, microwave is the best option thereafter, because it does not expose food for long duration of cooking. It cooks food very quickly with very little water. So don't use large amounts of water. Microwave is extremely safe. On the contrary, I have another tip to give you. Whenever you cook or use your food, like I also am a working lady, I also have a family, and my son is in grade 10, quite in the prime of teenage, you can imagine. So I have enough and more to do, and by God's grace, you can see, I don't know if some of you, if you're following me on my social handle, there's so much that is happening all the time. And as a human being, we also sometimes do eat food from the fridge. As much as I want to eat sattvic food which is cooked fresh within 2 hours, it is not always practical. So whenever there is the food safety, or how you handle cross contamination, whatever is cooked, use your steel or a glass ceramic tiffin box, immediately transfer where there is no cross contamination, put it into the refrigerator within 1.5 hours, and when you pull it out, you don't even have to microwave it. If you are looking at reheating, I never reheat my vegetables. Once it is cooked, it is cooked. Once it comes out of the fridge, it will never go back into the fridge. It is finished then and there. I have it's a mental illness actually. So if you kind of get obsessed about all these things, it gets complicated. So microwave can definitely be very, very safe option to cook. In fact, it is far more healthy. Similarly, freezing. A lot of guys ask that. Is freezing good? Yes, freezing is one of the best option, because if you have some extra fruit, vegetables, even cooked food, freezing actually locks in the nutrients, and but you can only thaw once, meaning you can't bring it down to room temperature and put it back. So those are very, very, technology can be used for saving nutrients in many ways. Is there a link you mentioned in the earlier session about the sports supplement? Oh, Yashas, that's the FSSAI. Can somebody please post it back? Off topic, lactose intolerant people, what is the substitute for whey? Hey guys, Ansu, you do not have lactose in whey isolate. It is hydrolysate and isolate are free of lactose. So you don't have to worry about concentrate. Don't use blends and concentrate. Other than that, you saw in the protein chapter, we have dime a dozen options from hemp, pre, soya, mixed protein, rice protein, quinoa protein, use any of that. Prajwal, you cannot ask me the same question again. I talked to you about it at length. So any brands that you go with, kindly please see their licensing and use only brands with third-party verification, period. Okay? Any more questions? Any feedback?
You know what is best feedback, that people are asking so many related, non-related questions during the session. So I think all are, enjoying the session very much. And it's really, really good learning for all of us. So it is really very informative session. It was
Good. Hey guys, I closed that document. Okay, wait, let me open my plan. Somebody is asking me for that FSSAI. Give me 1 sec, Baba, let me post it again, okay? I know, actually, this 1.5 hour is quite a lengthy session, I must say. There's also the WADA NADA guidelines, so anybody must actually know that, okay? Is whey protein? Hey, whey is not casein. Who is this? Hey, Bhagwan, isko fail karao yaar in this protein supplement. If there's a test, this child will fail, okay? Guys, you got it all mixed. Whey is whey, casein is casein. They're two different things. 90% is whey in the milk. Sorry, 90% is casein and 10% is whey. If you break the milk, what is eggs? Chirag, what is eggs, Baba? You're asking me one whey question, eggs. Whey protein free of casein. Okay, guys, whey is not casein. If you curdle the milk and you get the paneer is powdered, it becomes casein. Yeah, and the whey, the water part is powdered and that becomes whey. Now, there are 3 types of whey: whey hydrolysate, whey isolate, and whey concentrate. All 3 are different. Whey concentrate is 80% protein. Whey isolate is 90% protein. Hydrolysate even superior, very, very refined peptides. So they're 2 different things. Okay. Who asked me that question? Yashas. Okay, guys, over to Janvi. Toodlums for today.
Thank you so much. It was really very informative and wonderful session. I'm not able to switch on my video. I don't know why.
No worries.
So we'll be having tomorrow's session at 4 p.m. sharp. And I am getting few queries for participants that we are asking about the transaction details, but we really need it because many participants have paid through online and many participants have paid through net banking. So to getting all the data in a one email, it's very difficult. So all are requested to share the transaction details. Those who are not able to do it, you can contact me or Niroj sir. Niroj sir, could you please share the feedback link? And we'll share all the feedbacks with you. You want Geeta daily, it means all session feedbacks, or after all the session you need
Oh no, if they have any specific feedback, it will be helpful, right? Because we still are only halfway. We have 4 more lectures. So if you can share the feedback also, it will be good.
Great. So I'll share the feedback of all 3 days with you. Neeraj sir, are you there? Could you please share the feedback link?
Okay, that is only specific to me, right, Janvi?
Sorry?
That is feedback only for specific to my teaching, right?
From day 2 only specific to the sessions and the content and everything.
Okay, great. That will also help me in understanding what they want, because after all, this is their class.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, like these presentations look very little. Okay, it takes a lot of time to actually make them.
Actually, participants are requesting for the YouTube this thing, but we are facing some technical problems, so we are not able to upload the second session on a YouTube. Once we are able to do it, we'll share the link of YouTube channel in the WhatsApp group. Yeah. So once again, thank you. I think Neeraj sir is not able to share the feedback from here.
Okay, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna exit. Good day and see you tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
We will share a feedback link in the WhatsApp group. So thank you so much all the participants for your active participation.